Hi there, welcome back to Diagonal Move. We are on stage 8 of the Flamme Rouge Tour de France 2022. It's a game that I'm playing using a fan-made variant of an as-yet unreleased expansion, that fan being BGG user Beiran Owlpants, and that expansion being the Grand Tour, an expansion that's been so long arriving it's basically become a myth. Day 8, though, will take us from Dole to Lausanne. It's another lumpy stage, doesn't quite reach the altitude that stage 7 did, but it's certainly going to be a testing time with another uphill finish into Lausanne. There's a couple of extra additions I've added in just for the fun of it, being the weather from the Meteor expansion, just to add a little bit of something extra because I can. Okay, let's start off and join the racing as the day progresses. The windy conditions in the early part of the race have caused a few breaks. As we approach this first hill, Team Diagonal Move has once again been racking up those exhaustion cards, and frankly the rest day cannot come soon enough. But we've got to get across that little lumpy area here first into the supply zone, and then down the long straight off camera at the moment into the remaining hills. So yeah, early part of the race, we've got a few splits. Let's see how we go going up this first set of hills. Okay, the pink roulette for Diagonal Move has drawn a 6, aiming to get up and over that hill. The sprinter a 5. The green team of the Ferret and the Headhunter are going to both ride 5 each. The sprinter for blue, who I have called D, will play the muscle card, getting an extra boost there, and meanwhile the roulette P will move 6. Okay, everyone's trying to bring it back together, but there's no slipstreaming. Well, no slipstreaming here, and as we move around the hills, the slipstreaming will be affected as well. So let's see what happens. So up first we have J for Diagonal Move. Only moving 5, but finishing on the descent. A 5 also for the green team. Again, finishing on the descent. 5 again. Halfway up the hill. 5 for the sprinter D. Finishing on the hill also. This first hill seems to be slowing everybody down. Just 3 for the leader on the road, the pink roulette, but because we are on a descent, we'll have a minimum of 5. Finishing halfway up the hill for the green team, exactly the same. Green again will go, but this time just the 4. A mere 2 for the Diagonal Move sprinter, hoping to get rid of some of the exhaustion cards on the descent if we can. 7 for the blue roulette, however, there'll only be a 5. Oops, model. Novel descending there from the blue roulette. The breakaway stayed away from most of the rest of the race, but has now come together at the foot of the final climb. It's a 3rd category climb up to a mountaintop finish. Going to be quite a challenge for anyone who has been left behind to get to the top, but we will see how that goes. So let's start off with the card reveal. The 7 sprinter for Diagonal Move, taking advantage of still being on the previous descent. Another strong card there from the green team, and it looks like the blue team are also attempting to make the most of the descent here with this card, and also attempting to get up that mountain as soon as possible. All right, let's see how this goes. Green splinter, currently the yellow jersey, just 5 spaces. The blue roulette, also 5, as is the pink roulette and the green roulette. Everybody has stayed together on that climb at the moment. J, the Diagonal Move roulette, has attacked on the final climb, hoping to nip the stage at the very end. Let's see how we go. There's faltering for the yellow jersey at the moment, moving only 2 spaces. Has crossed the line, but has he crossed the line first? We'll find out in just a moment. The rouleur for the blue team has come in ahead of the yellow jersey, the sprinter for the green team. Looks like Diagonal Move have come in second at the moment. The player who is on the rightmost will actually win the stage if there is a tie. But the green rouleur now moves 9, or would do if we were not on the mountain. Okay, something of a bunch finished there at the top of that mountain before finally the stragglers are still some way behind on that hill. Have a look at GC in just a moment, but the stage has been won by P, the blue rouleur, who is climbing ever so slowly up the GC as well as racking up the stage wins. More changes in GC then, with Team Diagonal Move slipping ever further backwards. Both riders now dropping out of the top 3, being replaced by the rouleur on the green team, and the yellow jersey holder remains at the top of the race. Meanwhile though, the rouleur for the blue team is moving steadily closer to the yellow jersey and certainly holding on tightly to that second spot. Not quite the same story for his teammate though, who is currently dead last. Is basically the Lanterne Rouge, and the way the rules are written at the moment in this unofficial expansion is that once you hit this space you stop calculating GC for this rider. So D, the blue sprinter, will be the Lanterne Rouge, at least until somebody else joins him. Stage 9 is another day in the mountains for our riders in this year's tour. The road undulates for nearly 193 kilometres all the way from Arclay to Châtel-les-Portes de Soleil, and not only do riders have to contend with my French pronunciation, they have to contend with 2 first category climbs, a second cat and a 4th category climb. There is a short, sharp hilltop finish at the end, as if the rest of the race wasn't hard enough for them. Rest day tomorrow though, we'll see what happens. The exhaustion has piled on now, particularly for Team Diagonal Move. We'll see how they last in what is a very tough stage on this year's tour. The peloton have stayed together for well over 2/3 of the race. However, we're now on the long descent down from the first of our category 1 climbs, with just a short stretch on the valley floor before launching upwards again into the bigger category 1 climb. Following that, there's a short plateau before a final ramp up to the finish. Ideal opportunity for a mountain breakaway if it's timed well. Rejoin the race then with revealing the cards. A 2 for Diagonal Move, both the sprinter and the rouleur aiming to take advantage of some free descending while removing some of those exhaustion cards. The blue team with the sprinter drawing a 3, again trying to benefit from the descent, and the rouleur going on the attack somewhat to try and get to the foot of that hill before the green team, who are going to replay a 7. They have the same idea. We have potential now for a breakaway. That exploratory, almost tentative attack from the green team tested the legs of the Diagonal Move and of the blue team without any real success, but now we have a counter-attack from the blue team, and revealing the cards here, we see that the rouleur for the green team moves just a mere 2 spaces, but the sprinter from the same team does move 5. Counter-attack coming now from blue. And then finally, Team Diagonal Move still on that descent and hoping to make the most of the free descending down into the valley floor and up into the foothills of the final climb. It looks like the split in the peloton we've been waiting for all day is finally happening. The sprinter for the green team moves just 2, taking the worst of the 2 results from that peloton card, their special solo AI card. The rouleur for blue moves a full 5 onto the force flat, or the plateau if you like. The blue sprinter though moves just a mere 2. Exhaustion is kicking in for the blue team as well as diagonal move, it seems, and the rouleur for green though takes advantage of moving a full 5 spaces and is now on the slopes. T, the sprinter for diagonal move, appears to have cracked, moving just 2. J, the pink rouleur, moves 5 spaces, still with the peloton. There is a small benefit of the descent there for the green rouleur. As the riders crest the top of the final category climb of the day, there's a brief moment of torment as false hope is provided by a slight descent before a plateau and then a final ramp up at the end. P, the rouleur for the blue team, pushes a Herculean effort to move 5 spaces up the final climb and over the finish line, followed slowly behind by the ferret, who moves a mere 3 left on the final slopes of the climb there. The sprinter, the headhunter, is also moving a mere 3 spaces with no slipstreaming benefit due to the fact the rouleur is on the slopes of the hill. Further down the peloton, J, the blue rouleur, the pink rouleur, moves just 5, which does see him onto the lower part of that final incline. 4 for the blue sprinter, and finally 5 for T, the pink sprinter, and moving first is the ferret with a 4 space move, followed by the rouleur for the diagonal move team with a 5 space move, coming in ahead of the ferret. 4 spaces also for the sprinter, the headhunter from the green team and the overall yellow jersey at the moment. Blue sprinter, our Lanterne Rouge, is sticking to type. Meanwhile, a final massive effort from the sprinter for diagonal move sees him cross the line. Also, no change in individual general classification, with the headhunter sprinter for the green team remaining just ahead of P, the rouleur, for the blue team. Everyone else though seems to have lost a little bit of time once again on those other 2 riders, and the overall team classification has changed hands to the blue team. The remarkable consistency and winning streak of the blue rouleur. One of the fun things about playing variants to official games is that you can tinker with how the rules are designed, and you can try your hand at designing and developing playtesting games. And that could be something as simple as trying to work out why stage 10 on the coffee table looks nothing like stage 10 on the printed sheet, or it could be something a bit more about trying to change a mechanism to something that you prefer personally as a player. And so while our riders are resting on stage 10 and all those exhaustion cards are being removed from the deck, I just thought I'd have a think about how the game's going so far from that designing point of view and just my own thoughts on it. The variant that I'm playing is a fan variant of an unofficial expansion, and both those things seem to work very well, but they seem to be geared up for multiple players and not so suited for the solo that I'm playing. And it's to do with these expansion cards. Basically, you pick up one of these expansion cards at various points in the game, and then you discard half at the end of each stage. And that probably works really, really well as a multiplayer game when you've got multiple real people. But when you've got the AI and you're following those AI rules that are in the Peloton expansion for the muscle team and the Peloton team, you don't pick up any of these cards for those bot teams. And as the course of the tour progresses, you as the player are collecting more and more of these, and the bot isn't. And so over a period of time, you're getting at more and more of a disadvantage unless you're very good at removing some of these cards. And what's happening with my game at the moment is that those cards are really impacting how the game is playing, and my really quite consistent performance, if I do say so myself, in the first few stages has deteriorated to the point where I'm now virtually dead last in the entire game. Now, you may say that it's because, Neil, you're just not very good at Flamme Rouge, and you'd have a point perhaps, but I also think there's perhaps a way of tinkering with this to make it a little bit more even as a solo player. What I did in the original video was I said that I would, for the time trial stage that kicked off the whole tour, the AI would follow the rules for that particular variant stage, and if they played the highest card they would get an exhaustion, which they did a couple of times, and then for the other stages they would only gain exhaustion if they ran out of cards and they needed to draw an exhaustion card to move. And that really didn't happen. I mean, the exhaustion cards from the time trial were basically gone by the end of the second stage, and there was only really one occasion where they ran out of cards, which was in the stage 8. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to change it. I'm going to clear out the decks of well, the player, my decks of cards from these exhaustion, and I'm going to start to follow the rule for the AI bots, whereas if they win the stage, they pick up 2 exhaustion cards or that rider, so whether that's the sprinter or the rouleur for the blue team, or either or for the green team, because obviously they enjoy the 1 card. Having picked up those cards, they'll only discard them if they're played during the race, and that should hopefully balance out the situation I've had where at the end of a game I've discarded 5 of these cards and still had 5 left in the deck. We'll see how it goes. That's my personal thoughts on how to adjust this variant of Flamme Rouge for the solo bots. Just my personal opinion. Purely an amateur when it comes to game design, development, playtesting, but if it helps, let's see how it goes. Stage 10 sees our now fully rested peloton tackle the undulating road from Morzine-les-Portes de Soleil to McGeeve. 148 kilometres, few categorised climbs, including a long second category climb all the way up to another hilltop finish. Breakaway from the 2 last riders on GC right at the very early part of the race has, against all the odds, stayed away from the peloton for much of the race, moving over not 1 but 2 categorised climbs and now reaching the top of a 3rd category climb, still with some distance between them and the peloton. Those 2 riders are, of course, D for the blue team and J for Team Diagonal Move. Flip over the cards now just to see how we do on the descent, because it's possible they may try and stay away the entire race. Okay, some relatively moderate cards for Team Diagonal Move and some mixed cards there for the other team. It looks like the blue team are trying to get the rouleur up with the sprinter. Meanwhile, the green team are being steady, nice and steady all the way, as they have been the entire race, really. The competitiveness between their 2 riders, the legendary Ferret and Headhunter, seeming to have subsided at the moment. But let's see how this goes. So 3 for the rouleur, the sprinter on the blue team, 4 for the pink rouleur J, 5 for the sprinter, looking like we've caught the group now. It does look like the peloton is starting to come back together after that long breakaway today as the race moves through towards the final climb. We shall find out how much that has impacted our riders, because Diagonal Move are yet again racking up those exhaustion cards. Team Diagonal Move have been on the front more or less all day, and they now lead the peloton into the long 2nd category climb up to McGeeve. It's a big old climb. Will that time on the front be the end of Team Diagonal Move. We shall see. Flipping the cards over, we have a 5 and a 9 for Team Diagonal Move, so they've got some legs yet. Onto the green team with a much lower card, and finally the blue team also with moderate cards. Let's see how we get on. Okay, everyone's limited to 5 as they go across the mountain spaces. That's probably more exhaustion for Team Diagonal Move as they go up those mountains. Hard work out on the front. This is a 7 for Jay, the rouleur on Team Diagonal Move. Shows that the rider is still going strong. However, T, the sprinter, does seem to be slowing down. For the other teams, it looks like a renewed attack from the green team, while the blue team are doing their best to stay in the race. Okay, let's see. We have a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Limited by the mountain spaces. So close to the top of the mountain now. Jay from Diagonal Move left his teammate behind. There's a gap formed there between the first and second on the road. And it looks like the large group is now forming behind Jay from Team Diagonal Move, led up though by his teammate T, both of whom are going to rack up more exhaustion. This is possibly not the best time to have done an attack, but we will see how it goes. Jay for Diagonal Move finishes very strongly, crossing the line in first place. His teammate though is starting to feel the effects of the hard days racing in. But it does look like the green team, and indeed everyone else, is some distance behind the rouleur for Team Diagonal Move. Okay, everybody did cross the line in one big bunch. They're all going to get the same time. Victory on the day though goes to Jay, our Diagonal Move rouleur. There's been a lot of climbing already in this year's Tour de France, but all that climbing has been a mere warm-up for today's stage. We have riders travelling from Albertville all the way to the Col de Granon-Serre-Chevalier. That final hill is some 2,430 metres high, 11.3 kilometres in length, and averages some 9.2% incline. As if that is not enough, prior to climbing up the Serre Chevalier, we have the Col de Galibier, one of the Tour's most legendary climbs, itself 17 kilometres in length, 6.9% gradient, and 2,642 metres in height. And as if that wasn't enough, we first have to cross the Col de Telegraph, 1,500 metre first category climb, and the Lasette de Montvernier, a second category climb, 3.4 kilometres in length. Our riders are going to be feeling it in the morning for sure. The green team of the Ferret and the Headhunter have attacked on the slopes of the Col de Telegraph and are now on the descent towards the Col de Galibier. Everyone else is following along behind, still on the foothills of the Col de Telegraph. But let's have a look at the cards. Fairly defensive posture there from Diagonal Move, with the blue team following suit. Meanwhile, the green team are pressing home that attack. So let's see how that goes. Limited, of course, to 5. Meanwhile, the blue team are rouleur and sprinter and Team Diagonal Move are coming up now. Both onto the descent, hoping to make up some time on the descent and try and keep the Ferret and the Headhunter within reach. The attacks are coming thick and fast on the slopes of the Col de Galibier, with all the riders now trying hard to get to that top and gain the advantage as they move down the descent and into the valley. Moving the green team 5 apiece, and the blue rouleur also, with Diagonal Move all pressing hard behind. Finally, the blue sprinter, trailing behind again, does finally get to the lower slopes of the Galibier, but is very much trailing on the road now. Another massive effort from all concerned, getting to the top of the Galibier onto the descent. Looks like everything might start coming back together, but let's see how it plays out. The ferret and the headhunter ran out of steam on the valley floor, and the breakaway was caught by the peloton at the very base of the final climb of the day. Going to stay with this one to the end as the riders struggle their way up that 9% 11 kilometre hill towards the mountaintop finish, and it's the first Hoare category mountaintop finish of the day, a beyond categorisation hill, this one. Starting with the green team, particularly with the Rouleur, for most of the front runners. Looks like the peloton is staying together still at the base of this climb. Now there is one final card to play, the sprinter for the blue team, who you would think would be swept up by the broom wagon several stages ago, but is still plodding along and is putting in a massive effort to join the rest of the peloton on the hill, and has actually managed to do just that. So all to play for still as we move into the final stages of today's racing. It looks like there's an attack from Team Diagonal Move with the Rouleur J playing a 7 card in the hope to get to the front of this pack before we reach the very, very top of the climb. The green team do appear now to be running out of steam even more following that long time in the saddle, while the blue team of D and P are both trying their best to get up there as well. Okay, let's see how this goes. Moving on to the blue Rouleur 5, who is now joint first at the front of this pack. Overall, of course, that rider is second in the race in the GC. A 4 for Team Diagonal Move. And that attack failed, it seems, from Team Diagonal Move, who are still basically where they were just a moment ago. And finally, a 5. Really remarkable effort there from the sprinter for the blue team, who has been trailing this entire race and has been training this entire day, but still has some energy, it seems, as we move towards the summit. Playing now what could be the final card of the day, with the green team trying their very best to get up across that line first, but with also some renewed attacking from the Team Diagonal Move Rouleur. Playing what could be the last card of the race, and it's a game of rouleurs at the moment, as all 3 of the rouleurs attempt to cross the line at the head of this bunch that stay together remarkably all the way up this hill. And we will first move the green rouleur on the right hand side of the board, followed by the blue rouleur, and then the green sprinter, the pink sprinter is not yet over the line. That means there will be more time lost for the former GC contender. And it looks like Team Diagonal Move have failed to finish in this race, meaning there will definitely be more time lost today, as there will be also for the sprinter, who really is making up the numbers now after that huge effort to get to the top of the race. No significant change in the overall individual general classification, with the green sprinter, the headhunter, still being some distance ahead of the blue rouleur. The green rouleur, the ferret, is still making up the numbers on the podium and adding points all the time to the Tour classification, which now sees the green team joint first with Team Diagonal Move, and just 1 point between those 2 teams and the blue team as well. In second, the blue rouleur is doing a good job of closing the gap slowly but surely on the general classification, with that remarkable consistency that rider is showing. Team Diagonal Move is slowly but surely slipping ever further back. Not quite yet in the broom wagon with the blue sprinter, but certainly feels like they're getting closer every single time we do a stage. The exhaustion, the rules that I sort of implemented post the rest day have now kicked in, with the green team taking 2 exhaustion cards as a result of winning the stage. And after today's effort in the breakaway and then up that hill, that feels quite thematically appropriate, as does the exhaustion card for the blue sprinter, who did a massive effort to get to the foot of the Galibier and catch the peloton, but then did fade towards the end. We actually ran out of cards in the solo deck, which is why we have that card. We needed to draw an exhaustion card to get that rider over the line. Of course, Team Diagonal Move has been gaining and losing exhaustion cards in the usual way for the players. Another massive day in the saddle tomorrow, so let's take a quick look now at the epic that is Stage 12. Stage 12 of the 2022 Tour de France is so epic it doesn't even fit in the camera shot. Travelling 165 kilometres from Briançon all the way to Alps d'Huez itself, and as if taking the legendary climb as its mountaintop finish is not enough, it takes in another 3 legendary climbs. We revisit the Col de Galibier and the Col de Telegraph on the way to the Col de la Croix de Fer, and finally up to Alps d'Huez itself. That's 3 beyond categorization climbs in one stage, and the stage is very, very rarely flat throughout. It's going to be one that will sort out the contenders now. If it doesn't get sorted now, it never will. So here then is Stage 12 of the Tour de France 2022. The green team of the Ferret and the Headhunter again attacked on the slopes of the Col de Galibier in an attempt to do one better than their breakaway of yesterday. However, it came to naught once again as the peloton rejoined at the foot here of the Col de la Croix de Fer. It's a very hectic day's worth of racing here. Everyone is still on the attack and pushing hard up this second beyond categorization climb. As our riders summit the Col de la Croix de Fer, Alps d'Huez can be seen in the distance, and there is now just one descent in the valley to go before we hit the slopes of that legendary climb. Looking at the cards that are drawn, we have Diagonal Move attempting to recover a little bit on this descent, and I just wonder what will happen with the others, whether there'll be an advantage taken. Looks like the rouleur for the blue team P is not choosing to wait for anyone on this descent, and neither is the sprinter, who is currently dead last in the whole race, but is looking for some glory today. It does look like the decision to recover on the downhill from the Croix de Fer is going to come back and bite them, as everyone else seems to have decided to attack. It looks like Team Diagonal Move have held on by the skin of their teeth to the peloton and are now back in contention after a hairy moment there on the descent down into the valley. Once again, the miracle of amateur television has allowed the mountain to be moved to afford a better camera angle. Our riders are now well up the slopes of Alps d'Huez, and that 13.8 kilometres and 8% average gradient are surely going to be paying their toll soon. The riders will now reveal the cards. A 5 for the green team, going strong still, a 2 for the sprinter, and a 6 for the rouleur on the blue team. So the rouleurs are still going strong, it seems, but the sprinters do appear to be fading, as you may expect going up a hill. Okay, so not quite at the finish line for anyone just yet, and in fact many of the riders will stay together, it seems. It looks like the exertions of this morning's breakaway are starting to take their toll on the green team and on the blue team. Both have drawn an exhaustion card, one for the green team as a result of yesterday's efforts, and the blue team, the rouleur, has run out of cards to play, so is forced to draw an exhaustion card. Let's see how this plays out then, because I don't think everyone is going to finish on this card draw. The green rouleur and the blue rouleur are both over the line, but the green sprinter, our current GC rider, is not. It does appear though that our pink rouleur has crossed the line and is potentially the winner on the day. Yes, it does appear we have a winner on this year's race. The pink rouleur J has crossed the line first at the top of the Alp d'Huez and will now take his name among the legendary riders who have won a stage on this most famous of mountain passes. All change at the top of the GC on that most exciting finish of the most epic day on this year's tour. We have a new yellow jersey in the blue Rouleur P, coming in fractionally ahead of the previous yellow jersey, the headhunter from the green team. Lower down we have a change in positioning for Team Diagonal Move, with the Rouleur now moving into fourth ahead of T, the sprinter. On the tour, the team classification, the Team Diagonal Move have again taken the lead in that overall classification thanks to winning today's stage. After an intense 2 or 3 days in the mountains, our riders are now being transitioned from Le Bourg d'Oisans to Saint-Étienne. Stage 13 is 192 kilometres with a few categorised climbs, but nothing like what we had yesterday. There's also sees the return of the pavé, representing some more undulating terrain that is hilly but not quite mountainous as such. A most bizarre turn of events on today's stage. The ferret for the green team has chased down and caught the breakaway from the headhunter from the same team. Could have been a decisive breakaway for the second position in GC rider. However, that has come back together now with the sprinter from the blue team also catching that small group. Coming up behind though, caught on the hop yet again, Team Diagonal Move racking up another exhaustion card. The race is on today's stage as Team Diagonal Move try to bridge the gap between their group and the leading riders. The Rouleur for the blue team P suffering from yesterday's exertions in the mountains and has drawn an exhaustion card, and the group up front appear to be slowing. The race has come back together on the road. We now have the potential for a bunch sprint at the finish, assuming we can all get over the final climb in one piece. The Rouleur P for the blue team, our current yellow jersey, is out the back and struggling. Looks like yesterday's exertions were a bit much, and potentially this is a tenuous grip he has now on that yellow jersey. The current overall leader, P, is falling further and further behind, and our leader on the road is now the headhunter for the green team. Possibly this has been a short stint in yellow for the blue team, but we'll see how it goes across what is the only real categorised climb of the day, starting with the Rouleur, the sprinter for the blue team. The sprinter from Diagonal Move choosing not to take the advantage of the free speed for the supply zone there, and instead trying to get across that mountain and onto the descent in the lead, but cannot go further than the blue sprinter there, so a failed attack from Team Diagonal Move. Meanwhile, his colleague in the Rouleur back in the supply zone will move for, thanks to that supply zone, so everyone is staying together, and meanwhile the Rouleur P remains some distance behind. The sprinters train has ramped up as we approach the finish line in today's stage, and everyone is giving it their best effort to cross the line in what is going to be an intense finish. Let's start with the blue sprinter, who has, sadly for them at least, run out of steam just before the line, but the green sprinter has no such issues. And it looks like the green team are fully home, but Team Diagonal Move are following close behind. Very close finish at the end there, but the winner is the green sprinter, who has won by a mere tyre's breadth from the sprinter from Team Diagonal Move. The loss of time for the blue team is going to be significant. There is a fair distance now between the overall GC leader and the GC leader on the road. It should have been a transition. There should have been no surprises on stage 13, and certainly no GC shocks like we see in front of us here. But as happened in week one, a seemingly innocuous stage has changed everything as a result of riders suffering from the previous day's racing. GC is now led once again by the headhunter, with his teammate, the ferret, behind in second and some distance behind, but perhaps the rivalry that we saw at the in week 1 is starting to show its face again. Diagonal Move now have their rouleur back on the podium in 3rd position, with the rouleur for the blue team P, who was the leader so briefly, now in 4th. Following behind is the sprinter and former GC leader T, with the Lanterne Rouge remaining the blue sprinter. On team classification, it is now Diagonal Move neck and neck with the green team and the blue team starting to trail behind once again. Stage 14, snaking its way at a jaunty angle from Saint-Étienne to Mende. It's a race with plenty of ups and downs. There are a few categorised climbs and some areas of undulating terrain, here represented by the pavé, because they are not quite so undulating as the categorised regions. It's a race with a short, sharp finish at the end, uphill, so making this perhaps more suited to the breakaways rather than a big bunch sprint like we saw yesterday. This is of course also the last stage in week 2, moving on next week towards the Pyrenees and the high mountains once again. T, the sprinter for Team Diagonal Move, and the headhunter are in an early breakaway. Interesting choice of tactic to do this so soon in the race, but the pavé really allowed that opportunity to happen with the absence of any slipstreaming, meaning the field naturally disintegrated. Unfortunately, there is now plenty of exhaustion going into the hand of Team Diagonal Move, which is going to potentially have that same problem we had last time, with a good performance over the course of a couple of days rapidly deteriorating as the exhaustion racks up. But let's see how this goes in terms of the movement here with this card draw. We have the sprinter making the most of that small descent, followed by a smaller move from the sprinter T. J, the rouleur for Team Diagonal Move, is moving 5 spaces in an attempt to catch that breakaway and join his teammate. The rouleur for P, our former yellow jersey, who had such a bad day yesterday, is not moving particularly far at all, and neither is the ferret, content to stay in the back of the pack. Meanwhile, the sprinter D, our Lanterne Rouge, is moving 9. Moving into contention now with that breakaway. And then we just have a little bit of slipstreaming, and we've clearly got a lone breakaway on the road with T from Diagonal Move. Sprinter for Team Diagonal Move has finally been caught going over the top of the final categorised climb of the day. The peloton will probably come back together now on the descent down into the valley. Looks like another big effort from Diagonal Move with no real benefit, and a mountain of exhaustion cards to navigate in its own right going into the end of the stage. Once again, the magic of amateur TV allows us to reorientate the track for a better camera view, and we're at the foot of the final climb. It's a nasty sharp ride up to the finish at Mende, and it looks like it's going to be whoever has got the best legs at the end of the day's racing. Don't forget, it's been nearly 200 kilometers and it's been a long breakaway for Team Diagonal Move. Okay, let's reveal the cards. We have a 7 for the rouleur, just 3 for our sprinter, breakaway rider of the day, 5 for P, who is still at the back after that hard day in the Alps, 2 for the sprinter on the same team, and 5 for Team Green. Okay, 3 will get Diagonal Move sprinter there. The 5 will see 1 space ahead for both the green riders. 7 will be limiting to 5 due to the hill for the pink rouleur, and finally the other riders are again, it seems, running out of steam as we approach the final part of the stage, although P does benefit from his teammates' slipstream. I suppose you could argue D waited, did the teamly thing to do. The final run to the finish at Mende sees Team Green and Team Diagonal Move almost neck and neck halfway up the slopes of the hill, and it's going to be who can hold on the best after a long day in the saddle. So let's reveal the cards for the sprinter T, who has been leading so much of this race today will get him across the line. A 7 for the Rouleur J, who has dug deep with his shovel and got across the line. Also, further down the hill, we have Team Blue, who are now trying to make a concerted effort, it seems, with P, joined by his teammate D, who is going to support getting up the hill and try to minimise time losses. Finally, Team Green, it looks like they're faltering. Chasing down the breakaway seems to have taken it out of them as well. So let's see how we do. And it looks like our sprinter J has not managed to finish in this particular race. He is behind and not across the line just yet. However, it does appear that J, the diagonal move Rouleur, is across the line first and has won today's stage. It's the end of week 2, a hugely exciting week of racing here on the Flamme Rouge Tour de France 2022. Stage 14 was a tense one, long breakaway from Team Diagonal Move, finally coming together and in a semi-sprint finish at the top of the final climb of the day. No real change on GC though, if anything, the green team have put in slightly more time on everyone else yet again. However, overall classification remains the same. The team classification does see the green team and Diagonal Move sharing the same spot. I believe we will say for now the green team is winning due to the fact that they did come so consistently in that last stage, finishing second and third over the Team Diagonal Move. Okay, so in terms of that breakaway though, we now have no less than 4 exhaustion cards in the hand of the Team Diagonal Move sprinter moving into the final week. So maybe that was a lot of effort for, frankly, not much reward at the end of the day. Will the riders on the blue team and the pink team catch the green riders? Will the ferret and the headhunter continue their unending rivalry to become the greatest Tour de France rider of all time? We shall see as we move into next week's video, which is going to be week 3 of the Tour de France and moving into the mountains and finally on to the Champs-Élysées on the final stage. Join me then. If you like the video, click like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and I will see you next time.